holy moly, I've just blundered. And at this moment, I'm just looking away from the board like this, like, don't see it, don't see it, don't see it. Hello everybody and welcome. Good morning guys. How's it going? Today I'm going to be recapping some of my games for you guys, so welcome in. Yes, this should be better. Okay. Welcome. So yeah, it's been a great start to the tournament so far, and it's been a wonderful time in Spain as well. I can speak louder, but I don't want to disturb anyone. I can whisper into the mic. So yes, if you guys don't know already, I am playing a tournament in Valencia at the moment. I have not picked up much Spanish, all I know is to say hola. Alright, I think I'm gonna get into the recaps for you guys. And as you can see, in my first round, I was paired against a 1985, and I had the white pieces, which I was very excited about. I had about 1 hour, I think the pairings were released about 1 hour before the game started, so I quickly looked at my opponent and I saw he played the French defense. And I decided to play an opening that I've really been trying out recently, but I have never played it over the board, so I think I was a little bit rusty out of this opening. Although, every game I've played so far, I've played openings that I've never played over the board before, so it's been really cool that I've been able to work them out here. So I play e4, and he plays e6, and I play queen e2. And now, a lot of people, when I play this move, it looks kind of crazy, like in any other opening, like playing queen e2 on the second move, you get some weird looks. People think you're a little bit insane. Despite the fact it looks like a not very ambitious opening, I think it's a really fun one. You go for knight f3, g3, bishop g2, castling kingside, and you go for king's Indian attack kind of style. It means it gets your opponent into a position they're not so familiar with, and I like to avoid all the knight c3 stuff because I did try and learn all the knight c3 variation of the French, and it just got so theoretical, all the things with the Vinova, like Vinova, how do you say it? Vinova. All those theoretical lines were just really, there was so much in there. So I've decided to move over and go for queen e2 now. So my opponent plays bishop e7, which is, I think, the third most common move. Other common ideas are c5, to which we go with the plan of knight f3, g3, and d5 is also a common move, which we just go d3, reinforce the pawn in the center. But yeah, bishop e7 is also pretty common. So yeah, he goes bishop e7, and I go for knight f3 here, and I just want to develop and get fianchettoed, and that is what I do. So then he goes for d5, I play d3, reinforcing, and he brings his knight out to f6. So he's got a little bit of pressure on the e4 pawn to start with. I realize I'm hiding behind the board there. Yeah, in this tournament, I've been going for a very different style of play from what I usually play. I'm going for more like solid and not too tactical style, which is very different for me, but you know, I've been enjoying it so far, so maybe it's working, I don't know. It's not so wild, this is all theory, it's just like not so familiar to some people. So we go for g3, and he castles, I go bishop g2, and he plays c5 here, immediately just trying to take over the center, and then I castle here, kingside. So yeah, it's not a super ambitious opening so far, I will admit, but it just gets you into a nice solid setup, and there's no real weaknesses for white here, and you can just start with some plans, maybe b3, bishop b2, bring your bishop out this way, or play for like e5 and d4 as well if you want to build up in the center. And in some lines you might even go for king's Indian style attack with pushing f4, and it just depends. Like if the center's all closed up, then that really starts to become a plan with f4 and attacking on the king side. So yeah, it can quickly become an aggressive and tactical game if it takes that turn, but it can also just be like positional and calm. So my opponent plays knight c6, and yeah, just taking some control over these dark squares in the middle of the board, and I just decide to bring my rook to e1, and I want to have some plans at some point of pushing e5 here in the middle, and playing d4 as well. So here he goes for b5, which is, I noticed that he plays this a lot in some of his other games. He really, like, he wants to push all his pawns and take as much space as he can on the queen side, which I think is a good plan for my opponent. So he's playing really well so far. He seems to be very knowledgeable about these positions and stuff, so yeah, he's playing well. So I decided to play c3, just sort of taking control of these squares and then trying to push in the middle. So far nothing crazy has happened. The engine's still telling us it's all equal, all zeros, so nothing crazy yet. But some crazy stuff does happen quite soon. So here goes bishop b7, bringing this bishop out to this diagonal where he wants to just pressure and oppose this bishop here on g2. And then I push here, so no real mistakes so far, so I will analyze and look at lines when we make some big mistakes here, but at the moment it's all just pretty like okay. So he brings the knight back to d7, which is the only real square it can go. It can't come forward here. See, the knight has to go back somewhere. It can go to e8, but the problem with that is that it doesn't really have a good reroute of somewhere to go. On d7, it's thinking of coming to b6, and that's a good plan. You can't really come forward like this because I just have something like h3, and if the knight's coming here, I'm taking on h6 and damaging the pawns here. So yeah, he doesn't go that way. Instead, he goes back, which is a smart, responsible move. So yeah, here I then decide to play d4, and I just want to take some space in the board. So now it's resembling more like an advanced French structure. Maybe it wasn't the best plan. I mean, it was okay, but I think that it got me into some trouble. There was quite a bit of pressure on the d4 pawn, and I don't know, maybe d4 was a little bit premature by me. Okay, so yeah, then he brings his queen to b6, and suddenly there's quite a bit of pressure on this pawn here, so I'm feeling a bit uncomfortable here. I can take here, but I didn't really like the pawn structure after that. Like, this pawn was feeling a bit weak up here, but I'm sure it would have been completely fine taking here. I just felt like there was a bit of pressure on f2 and also pressure on this e5 pawn now as well. So I was thinking that instead I wanted to defend with bishop e3. And then he pushes here with b4. And this is quite a strong move. Like, this is chipping away at all my pawns, and suddenly my pawns are becoming really weak, and this is becoming a little bit scary. This has been my first time playing this over the board, so I think I'm still not fully familiar with the opening and all the plans, but I think it was good to play this and learn what's really happening in this game. So yeah, then I move my bishop back to f1, which is the second best engine move somehow, but when I played it, I was like, this is kind of a weird, awkward move to play. So basically my idea was that I didn't really want this bishop coming to a6. When he's playing b4 here, he's opening up the opportunity for his bishop to come to a6, and once my queen moves, he's got some really nice control over this open diagonal here, which I'm not going to be closing at any time soon. So like, I didn't like this look of bishop a6, and I wanted to just go bishop f1, make that not possible, and maybe even just go for a queen trade on b5. Bail out, get the queen trade, and yeah, hope for the best there. I was already feeling quite uncomfortable in this position. So here he plays a5, and suddenly this threat of bishop a6 is actually coming again, because now the rook protects this a6 square as well. And immediately I was like, oh, maybe I'll just like go here and I'll trade off the queens. But then I realized after the queen goes here, he just goes queen c7, and now my queen is super awkward here. He's threatening to play bishop a6. I probably have to move back to a4 or something, and yeah, so I was thinking, like, if we traded queens, this would be quite nice for me, because I'd have pressure on the c6 knight, stopping him from playing bishop a6. But if the queen just moves, then I felt like I was in a worse position, so I decided not to play that and instead move my queen over to c2. So I wanted my queen out of the way, and if he does play bishop a6, I can just move back to g2 or something. I'm not in too much trouble anymore. So yeah, this was where I started to feel like I was definitely a bit worse off. He brings his rook to c8, and now he's putting all this pressure down this diagonal here. He's threatening to take here, and once this opens up, there's all these sorts of revealed attacks with the knight moving, attacking my queen. So I was feeling a bit scared of that, and I decided, so what was the best move here? The best move was actually to just take here, which does make sense, and I think I definitely should have done this. Like, after taking, maybe we just even trade off the bishops, which is actually good. When you're playing as white, usually a plan can be, against the French, usually a plan can be to trade off their good bishop, which is generally their dark square bishop, and leave them with the light square bishop. But here, their light square bishop isn't so bad, so I'm not really sure what I've achieved here, but it definitely takes off some pressure of the c file, so it would have been better to take here. Instead, I try to go for something a little bit fancy, going with counterattack. If he's taking here on d4, I have some like nice intermezzos and stuff. Well, I probably just have to take back, actually. Yeah, I just have to take back here. But the thing is here, if the knight is taking here, all I have to do is take with the bishop, and then we're attacking their queen. And then if they take back here, we take like this. So that would have been a good continuation for me there. So yeah, after bishop d3, he plays an annoying defensive move, which is knight f8 here. So this basically just defends this h7 pawn, stops me from taking over here, and ruins my day. You know, I'm not having any fun anymore. So here I decide that it's time to take on c5 because there's so much pressure down this file. I really need to do something about all this tension in the middle of the board. So yeah, I take, and he takes back with the bishop. And I was considering lines of knight g5 because, okay, say in an imaginary world, he blunders and takes here, I have this check, and then if here there's a beautiful mate with knight f7, I mean, obviously that's probably not what's going to happen, but if the knight's taking here, we have takes, and the king's going in here, and then we can take back, and we've totally ruined their king side over there. So I was trying to calculate knight here, but what was my problem with it? I was thinking, what I was trying to calculate was, after I put my knight here, I remove a defender of this pawn on e5, and I was thinking here my opponent had a nice defensive move just to play knight g6, and suddenly there's a lot of pressure. There's two pieces attacking here. Obviously before they can't take straight away because of this threat here with bishop takes h7, but now the knight's moved away here, he can just go knight g6 and put pressure on this pawn. And I was thinking after takes, I wasn't really sure if I was liking this, how this was resulting for me. I had some very weak light squares here. Those threats of eventually, after taking, pushing forward and attacking me on these light squares. So I really didn't want to trade off this light square bishop. Like, I wasn't wanting to trade that for the knight. Even though it could have been interesting, I wasn't wanting to trade off because I didn't like how this was looking. So instead, I decided to just trade off bishops and then go for h4. And I was thinking here, basically my plan was to prepare to play knight g5, because now, okay, let's make a random move. What can I do? I don't know. Queen here. I'll try to make like a waiting move. Now knight g5 is quite good because this is no longer possible, because here we have h5, and then again if takes, we have taking on h7, and I mean it's still perfectly fine for black, but we get to attack, we get to take on h7, which is going to be nice. So so yeah, that was the plan behind h4 there. And here he takes on c3, and I'm like, oh, this is looking very uncomfortable. This is looking very, very uncomfortable. Now I was thinking knight takes c3, but then after d4, I don't know, knight e4, is that? I don't know, this all looked really uncomfortable for me. I guess knight a4, trades. I really wasn't liking it, again, how this bishop was staring down this knight on f3, so I was very scared about this whole plan of d4 and opening up this bishop here on b7. So I decided instead to take with the pawn, because then d4 wasn't so much of a threat. Because yeah, when this knight was here, if this knight is taking here, it's basically asking them to play d4. It's telling them they need to play d4 and to attack my light squares down there, which just looks terrifying. So yeah, I take with the pawn, and then here he plays knight b4, which obviously it's expected. He wants to take the bishop here. He wants to get rid of my light square bishop and trade down into the endgame. And yeah, that was the move I was expecting, but I didn't really see any other way that I could get out of uncomfortable positions here. So I was like, well, the endgame is going to be bad, but not terrible. So I take and we trade. And then I decide, instead of taking here and allowing them to take here, I want to go for some counterplay, so I decide to play b5. And my counterplay here is that I'm creating a passed pawn here. Now, obviously, this passed pawn is definitely not the scariest of passed pawns ever, but I'm threatening to play a4, connecting the pawns, and yeah, I definitely have some counterplay here, so it's definitely not so bad for me. But the problem is here, black is better because they can easily double up on the c file and control this open c file. As you guys will notice on the board, there's a pawn on at least one pawn on every single file except for the c file. And we know our rooks really like to take control of open files because that means they can control the maximum amount of squares down there. So that's really good for my opponent here. So here I was thinking about playing a4, but I felt like maybe I was worried about something at the time like rook b2 and doubling up. But apparently that's not really a threat. I was thinking after this looked uncomfortable, but apparently that's not a threat at all. I just go here and I try and trade off, which makes sense. It makes sense. But at the time, I was thinking after a4, I was just giving them too many moves to consolidate, double up the rooks, and attack me here on the f file. So here I decide to play knight d2. And I just want to get my knight off the back rank, clear up some squares for my rook, defend this knight here, and yeah, so I felt like once I was bringing my knight out, it was a little less uncomfortable for me. So b5 also does a really nice job of restricting this bishop here. Now at some point they want to play d4, but I mean it's actually possible right now because we can't take here because of this. This hangs. So d4 is actually possible, but what I'm going to try and do, and as you guys will see from my plan, is that I want to bring a knight to d4 to blockade this d pawn and also really restrict the bishop by controlling the c6 square. So that is my plan here in the endgame, to blockade the d4 push and try and get my pieces around trying to push this pawn, maybe even reroute my knight to c6 and trade off eventually. So yeah, that's what I had a plan of doing, and yeah, I do end up doing that, so that's cool. So here he plays a4, which yeah, this is a good move. Obviously, I want to play a4 here, so he does that. I mean, I probably should have played a4 when I did have the chance, but I just didn't like the initiative that it gave him at the time. But on a reflection, I should have played it. So yeah, he plays a4 and stops me from playing a4, which leaves this pawn a little bit lonely. But it's really, the good thing is, this pawn is actually not so weak here. Like, it's hard for my opponent to attack it because this bishop is so awkward here. It can't go to either of these squares to attack, and like, if he's bringing his rook in, well, I can just bring my rook in and defend, and it's really not so threatening. So even though it's a little bit lonely, it's not the worst. So the reason why I decided to go knight d2 first rather than knight d4, I think knight d4 is a perfectly fine move, but I was just thinking that he's going to put his rook on c4. And here, my knight is going to have to probably move from this d4 square where it's feeling really comfortable, or I go rook d1 or something, and I felt like here my knight's not so comfortable here, but I guess I can go for knight a3, but I was thinking it's not so easy to get my knight out now because it no longer has this safe square of d2. Like in this position, it's not able to go here because the rook's now targeting this knight on d4. So that's the reason I wanted to go knight d2 first. So yeah, that's the reason why. Although knight d4 is probably perfectly fine, I felt like knight d2 was easier to maneuver my pieces to good squares that way. So here he plays a4 and I put my rook on d1, and basically my idea, it's very obvious here, I'm protecting my knight here because I want to go knight d4 and not be hanging this knight here on d2. And once I get my knight to d4, the rook's going to have to move somewhere, and then I can bring my other knight to f3, and I feel like this is a really nice optimal positioning for my knights because we're protecting the e5 pawn and we're blockading here, so that's really what I wanted here. He goes knight d7, putting pressure on this pawn and temporarily, well, not really stopping me from playing knight d4 because that's what I do play, but it looks like he's stopping me from playing knight d4 because this is the only defender of this pawn. But you know, as Gotham Chess would say, danger levels, if they take here, obviously I'm taking this rook here. So yeah, I can do exactly what I want to do because this knight on d4 also defends this b5 pawn, and then bring this other knight here to defend the e5 pawn. So he brings his rook up to c3, and then I bring my knight to f3, and then he plays king f8. He is just wanting to bring his king in the game. He feels like probably his pieces are in optimal positions at the moment, and now he wants to start bringing the king. I bring my rook out to b1, and yeah, this is the best move here, but it's still worse for me. I was thinking at some point, you know, we're thinking about pushing here. So basically some plans that I had in my mind, I don't know if we make a few random moves, I was thinking about some plan with b6 and then going knight here, attacking the rook, and then bringing my knight up to d6 where it attacks the rook and the bishop. So that was some sort of long-term plan for me here, which I thought could be an interesting plan for me. So here he goes for knight b6, which is super annoying. It blockades the b6 push. But the good thing is the position is quite closed and they can't break into the second rank because of this knight here. So it's not so easy for them to make progress. So slow plans are okay in this position because it's not crazy. It's not like one of those sharp positions where it's like you make one move and it's a blunder or it's winning or whatever, huge tactics on the board. It's just like we gotta maneuver, try and get our pieces to good squares. It's a slow, boring endgame, but you know, it's still interesting. So here I decide to go for king h2. And yeah, king f1, king h2, or h5 are the top engine moves. So at the moment I decide that I just want to move my king. I want to get it out of the way. I want to also be able to move a rook maybe at some point to the second rank without being checked here on c1 as well. So basically at the moment, if I'm going rook d2, the rooks can come in behind here, which is quite annoying. And this is just an example move, of course. But if my king is on h2 instead, if rook c1, we can maybe just even go like rook b2. We're not forced to like trade everything off and let all the pieces in. So I just wanted to get my king up and safe. Sorry guys, by the way, if my voice is sounding very quiet, I've got a sort of sore throat. I think I'm losing my voice, so that's why. Okay, so after that, the king moves over to e8. He's getting the king into the game, and then I decide to go for this plan with knight e1. And yeah, I want to go here. I want to bring my knights. I want to just get a really strong knight here up on c6 where it's reinforced by the other. But obviously, you know, they're not going to make it so easy for me. Now here, I could have actually gone for knight d3, but I decided against it because I was thinking maybe something like rook here, and okay, say my knight, where's it gonna go? Oh, it's knight b2. Okay, because we're targeting this, okay. I haven't looked at this before and say something like this. Oh, a3, we're winning this pawn. Oh, cool. Okay, I totally didn't see this at all. Well, I never saw this. Yeah, I didn't see this idea because I was thinking if I go knight d3 now, I was a bit worried about this. And I was thinking in this scenario, I would have had to move this knight from where it's very happy, I don't know, like here. And then like once he's pushing forward with d4 at some point, I didn't want to take my knight away from d4. Basically, the reason why I did this was after rook c4, I didn't want to move my knight from d4, but I totally didn't see this knight b2 idea. Yeah, and that's crazy. Because here the rook's actually trapped if they come this way, so they have to go like here. And can I take here, or is it still complicated? If I take here, oh nope, there's rook a3. Okay, so it's not very simple. It's not so simple. There's a lot happening here. Okay, so I didn't go for that. Instead I decided to move my knight back to f3. I was like, okay, whatever, I'm gonna move my knight back to f3, and then he goes knight to b6, moving his knight back where it was. So we've reached this position a couple of times now, and I decide to go for rook b4 here, and I want to put a little bit of pressure on this pawn. For example, a plan for me might be bringing this rook to b1, and again, not leaving this knight hanging, but at some point playing like knight here, and if they take, we've got some pressure on this knight, and also stopping him from moving the knight as well, because we're attacking this pawn. But there was not really much to do in this position, so my plans were not super exciting. It was just, it was more just like, do what I can and not lose, because I was defending the worst side of a drawn position. Now he goes for rook c4, sorry, and wants to trade off the rooks, and I go rook b1 here, and this is a mistake because he has rook a3, and here he's just winning this pawn, I think. Or can I defend? Okay, if I go like here, oh, it gets so complicated here. But this is allegedly winning for black, and I see why now. The problem is the double attacking these knights, and knights, when they're only defended by each other, they become a lot weaker, so they're threatening to take 2 pieces for the rook. So I probably have to go here, and then he has a move like f6 to, whoa, he has a move like f6 to get rid of this pawn and then start pushing his pawns down the board. So if I'm like taking, then there's threats of this move. So yeah, there's a lot happening. This is the first time I'm analyzing this, so this is kind of crazy to me. But yeah, there was a lot of pressure here for black. It was a little bit of a complicated plan, so I don't blame my opponent for not finding it. There was nothing concrete there, but you know, it would have been good if my opponent found it. So here my opponent instead decides to go for a rook trade, which is also really good. And yeah, here they go for h6, and I'm not really sure what the purpose of this move is. Like, they just had a rook a3 here, and then after rook b2, like knight c4, and I was definitely struggling here, although similar things happened later in the game. I wasn't really sure what h6, the plan of h6 was actually. I guess maybe it was sort of a waiting move. So I decide to go for knight d2, and then he still doesn't play rook a3, he goes for king d7, and then I moved my king over to g2, which was just a bad move. I was thinking like maybe I wanted to come out this way, bring my king into the action, but the problem is, which I can see this totally now, it lines up the king with this bishop here. So if I'm ever moving this knight, there's always threats of pushing forward with d4. So yeah, this is really bad by me. So yeah, here he finds a nice move of f6, and he's really threatening to dislodge my knight from the d4 square and start pushing down, attacking me, and it looks very scary. So I decide to go for knight f3 here, and yeah, there's a lot of ways to be better here for black. I was just thinking if they take, I could take with check obviously, and keep my knight on d4. Like please. Let me keep my knight on d4 for as long as possible. So yeah, here he finally goes for rook a3, and this is just a really nice move. It's so hard to defend the pawn, and the engine tells me I should just let it go, let that pawn go. I decide to try and defend with rook b2, but this is bad. Knight c4 is played, and then I bring my rook over to d1, and here he has a win, and a win here with just taking, and I saw this too, taking here, rook takes a2. I was thinking I can take on e6, but yeah, there's a lot of problems here. Here, if knight f3, there's just something as simple as d4. So I couldn't take there. Maybe I can take with the, can I take with the knight? No, there's just king d6. It's awful. And then after this again, and this looks very scary. So the problem is they're getting an a pawn, which is really far down the board already, and it's ready to promote, and I can grab a pawn back, but it's really not worth it for all the pain that I put myself in with this open diagonal. And obviously black is just significantly better here. So what actually happens is my opponent plays f5, and you know, this looks like a mouse slip. I think he, you know, what I will say is my opponent was in his 60s, and he's been playing chess for a very long time. He's been like 2300 in his prime. And what I find with like players maybe above 50, they still have like really good understanding of the game because they've been playing so long, but their calculation and tactics, especially later on in the game, is not as strong generally. Not as strong. So like a lot of the time they might start to struggle with calculating long lines. I mean, in a couple of my games, I missed tactics, which I look back at and I'm like, that is so obvious. Why did I miss that? So it happens to all of us. So yeah, he plays f5. I expect he just didn't want to go into the complications here, but I think, you know, like maybe there's a good, I got lucky here. There's a chance, definitely a good chance that he could have played that and probably should have seen that. Okay, so here I play king h3, which is allegedly a great move. This is the only move that's like equalizing here. We're moving the king out of the way. But yeah, again, I'm not playing great. There's many more blunders to come. So then he moves his rook over here to d3, trying to attack me in the middle of the board, putting on the pressure. I play g4 here, and basically I just want to bring my king up here if I can. And I take, he moves the king over to f6, and then after this, I blunder, yay! And here again, there's a tactic with d4, and after the king moves, oh, look at this fork, it's so mean. It is so mean. I mean, there's just nowhere for my rook to go. There's like, this, I got very lucky that my opponent wasn't seeing these tactics. So yeah, he plays rook d1 here, missing the tactic, and then I put my knight back on d4, and he pushes forward here with g6. I play f4, pushing forward, he gives me a check, and it's equal again. He starts moving his rook around, and then here, as you guys will notice, my opponent only has around 3 minutes on the clock, so he's starting to get in a little bit of time pressure, so we start to see some crazy stuff happening. He plays h5 here, stopping me from pushing forward over here. I move my king over to f3. I really should have been a lot more careful with not moving my king to light squares, but here, a little bit stupidly, I was playing for the win, and I was like not wanting to trade off rooks. Okay, so he checks me, and then I go here, and look at me, I am blundering again. And he plays knight e3, which is a great move, and the idea is that after I take back here, he's removed the blockade from d4, and suddenly this bishop is really strong. And I take, he takes, I move my king up to f3, which, yeah, I'm not sure why I don't know what else I could have done here. Maybe king g3, I suppose. Yeah, my king was probably better at g3, because on f3, like, you know, it's on the light squares. I should have been a lot more careful about this. And now he goes rook here, which is a really nice move, and he's threatening to play t4. I move my king down to e2, obviously just trying to avoid this stuff. And here he plays a really nice move with rook a3, attacking this. And there's just no way for me to defend, because if I'm moving my king somewhere so my rook defends, well, you know, then this knight's hanging, so it's so sad. So here I go rook here, moving my rook over, and yep, again I am blundering, because there is d4, and my knight is attacked. And also, and guys, by the way, I saw this move, and I was like, holy moly, I've just blundered. And at this moment, I'm just looking away from the board like this, like, don't see it, don't see it, don't see it. I was like, if I even look at the board, I'm gonna just be staring at this d4 move, so I was just like, looking away like this, and yeah, so this was kind of crazy. So here, they don't see it, and they play the wrong move order. So this, yeah, this is just really strong. I was actually calculating, I probably just have to take this pawn up here, but I'm completely lost. They're taking here with check. There is absolutely nothing to do here for white. Instead, my opponent plays it wrong, and they go for this endgame, which they think is winning, but it's actually winning for white. So here, it's actually quite complicated. So here, I go back to king f2 and take here. And now even though they've got this passed pawn here, my king can just get in. And I move my king up, and I go towards the pawn, I take, and here I have a beautiful move which causes zugzwang for my opponent with a3, and here my opponent resigns. I mean, he didn't have much time on the clock. He probably could have played this on if he wanted to. Yeah, this was a nice move with a3, and the game is all over. Yeah! So this was my win. I went against, you know, 2000 ELO player. But yeah, this was my most exciting win. As I was saying, I think this is my game that I've played the worst in out of the 3 games I've played so far, but I got a win. I think on this first round, like, I just traveled, so basically for some context, I've traveled from Denmark all the way to Valencia by a 3-hour plane ride, 3-hour train, big drive as well to get to this tournament. I didn't get back until like 1 a.m. and then we were like walking around all day, setting up our setups to stream and that sort of thing. So I was exhausted. So I think I played pretty well, but I think my opponent was probably tired as well. Yeah, it was definitely a roller coaster game, but I won my first game, which was so exciting. No, I took a plane from Denmark to Barcelona because they don't have flights directly to Valencia, and then I took a three-hour train ride from there. Okay, so that was my first game. I'm gonna go into the next one, and this is my game I played versus an FM. I think I actually played really well at this game. So honestly, this is a game I'm the most proud of because I came up with some really good ideas. So he played knight f3, I played d5, and c4, e6, d4, knight f6, and g3, and we transposed into a Catalan, which I'm actually really happy about because I did some prep for the Catalan, this move order, against a previous opponent, but they didn't play the Catalan. So I finally got to use my Catalan prep that I had. So I went bishop b4, and he blocks, and I go for a5. And yeah, this is a fun line, and I was really happy because my opponent was playing the moves that I had prepped, and yeah. He goes bishop g2, and here I go for taking, and this is a fun line. I mean, the queen can come to c2 and attack here. We're gonna take and then put a knight on c6 as well, targeting this pawn in the middle. So basically the idea here is to take on c4 and then put a knight on c6 to pressure the d4 pawn. So I think it's, yeah, this is a fun opening. Here he just castles, not trying to regain back the pawn, and then I go for knight c6 here, putting the pressure on d4, and then he plays e3. I go for rook b8 here because my plan is I want to play b5, and there's no real threats of the knight winning anything here because these checks are, like, for example, if I'm playing b5, knight comes here, I can just trade, and this check is harmless because I've just blocked with the bishop. So here he goes for a4, which I actually thought this was not such a good move because it allows me to have this b4 square. At some point, they probably want to play a3, so it allows me to just have this b4 square for free. He plays a4 here, and then I just go for castling, and he plays queen c4, just trying to win back that pawn. And I'm not too worried about it. I can't play this anymore, but it means that I sort of have some time to play whatever move I want because they want to take this pawn on the next move. I decide to trade here, and then I want to put my knight on b4, and then I want to play something like b6 and bishop a6, just trying to target down this diagonal. So I play knight here, and what I want is for him to take with the queen and not with the knight on this c4, for the c4 pawn. So that's why I play knight b4 straight away, because I want them to take with the queen rather than the knight, because if they take it with the knight, they've got some pressure on a5. If they take it with the queen, then I can sort of attack it in the middle of the board. So he takes, and then I play b6, and he brings his knight here, and I could have played c6 here, but I was thinking like maybe this knight e5, and I felt like there was a lot of pressure on my pawn. Oh, I could have just played c5. Okay. Yeah, I didn't like that so much. I decided instead to go for knight d5 here, protecting this and threatening to play bishop a6 as well. So I play bishop a6. Black is like slightly better here, but it's still quite equal. I move my knight back to f6, and now I feel like I have my pieces on great squares. This bishop here is nice and strong. This knight here is also really good. It's hard for my opponent to trade it off, and this knight here on f6 is also really nice. So I was feeling really comfortable here. My opponent just wants to trade off bishops, and honestly, I see this as a win in the Catalan. If you're trading off your opponent's light square bishop, that means they're giving up their first piece. So we trade bishops, and then I go for c5, which I thought was a really interesting move. So the idea was like after taking here, if you're taking here, I have things like knight here, which looks really fun. So I liked the idea of opening up the c file. So it was an interesting pawn stack. He goes for rook c4 instead of taking, and then I decide this is a great opportunity to take and sort of get rid of some of his pawns in the middle of the board so they're not so scary. And this pawn's looking a little bit weaker now, which is great. And he takes with the rook, and then I move my queen up to c7. Trying to control this file, and it means that he can't play rook c1 as well because my queen's controlling this square. Then he plays e5, and his plan is that he wants to put a knight on d6. He wants the plan of knight e4 and bringing it to d6 and having a pawn to reinforce it. I decide to move my knight up to d5, and they place rook c4 attacking my queen, and I move over to e7. I was thinking about queen b7 because I had some sort of ideas of playing a6, but what I wanted was, I was thinking about queen e7 because after this knight's coming here, I wanted to be able to play something like well, not straight away. After the knight is coming to d6, I wanted to be able to play f6, and then if the pawn takes, then this knight would be hanging. So that's the reason why I played queen e7 here. He brings his rook to d1 here, and e1, sorry. And then I just decide that I want to trade off the rooks. He brings his knight into e4, and now he wants to put his knight on d6. And I decide to go for rook c7, and I'm going to try and double up on the c file here. He puts his knight on d6, and I takes, and then f6 here. So we're still pretty much equal. It's been mostly just equal for most of the game. We've had slight advantages, but nothing really crazy. So yeah, the idea is if they're taking, then this knight is going to be hanging here on d6. So he goes knight to e4 here, and I take this pawn, and my idea is that I just want to have this open file attacking the king. And I really like the move I played here. It's the top engine move, but it's a little bit strange when you first see it. It's queen e8, and it's basically a fork. I'm attacking this pawn, and I'm also threatening to play queen a5 with ideas of breaking in like this, and also attacking this knight at the same time. So apparently knight d6 was the best move here by white. And yeah, I could go for queen h5 still though, which I think looks fun. King moves over there. I think it's too risky to take over here in this line. So he goes back to e2 here, and then I just grab the pawn. And now it gets really, really complicated. So what I've been calculating was this, and after takes, going up here, and some ideas of knight e3, and trying to cut off the circulation, and then if the knight had to... So basically, okay, what I was calculating was basically what happened, but a little bit different. I was thinking, like, for example, if the rook was, like, moving... Okay, it's not going to move there, because that would be a fork. Like, if the rook was moving here, then this knight goes here, and then after king g1, I was thinking something like queen here. Or is that... Oh, I can just take this. I can just take this, never mind. And we're attacking this knight here. And I was thinking also some ideas of coming in like this. So I was looking at things like that. But anyway, I play this, he goes queen d3, and I was like, oh, that's a really obvious move that I should have calculated. And I was a little frustrated, but you know, I could still play the same thing. I still play rook f5, but it gets quite crazy, okay? It gets quite crazy, because now they're taking here, my rook's hanging, and my knight's hanging, and everything's hanging. And the only move is to go for this check, and it is all exactly equal here, which is crazy. He takes, and then a queen takes, and I blunder here. After all this calculation, I blunder, and the saddest thing was, I was originally going to play the right move, but then, last minute, I blitz out the wrong move, and if you see my clock here, I play it, I play it within 10 seconds. Within 10 seconds. You see that there's 30 seconds increment, and my clock goes up by 20 seconds. So I really rushed this move. I had 30 minutes on the clock. I should have just took the time to think, because I was calculating before queen d1. And for some reason in my calculations, I was thinking, oh, he just blocks here. But obviously he does not just block there, because that loses the house. That loses the whole house. So I was like, maybe I go for queen a1 instead, and then after the king's moving, I'm taking on b2, and I've got some pressure here. But it was just not good. So I think if I thought about queen d1 for a little longer, I would have been able to play that, because there's all these lines with here, 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 and this is just perfectly a draw. We've got 4 pawns each, and you know, it's a queen endgame, there's still more to play for, but yeah, I played it within 20 seconds, and it was just a bad move. And from here, I played on for a few more moves, but my opponent converted really nicely, and I was just lost. So yeah, I played on until here, but after he blocked, I was like, okay, there's no point me playing on now. So yeah, that was a very unfortunate game, But honestly, I'm very happy with how I calculated this whole sequence. My opponent actually didn't realize the strength of knight c2. He was like, oh, knight c2 was a mistake, but it was actually the best move. So I'm happy with finding that. I think he thought he was just winning from here, and I played the wrong line, so he was winning. But yeah, if I just calculated a little longer and looked at queen d1, I think I would have played it, to be honest, because that was the original move I was considering. It was one of those times where I was considering queen d1 in my original calculations, and then I was like, no, I'll just play queen a1, and played it straight away. So I should have thought a lot longer. But I think for my third game, I was thinking a lot longer in critical positions. So, you know, it's all about experience. I'm still quite new to these tournaments, and I think, yeah, I played well. I really liked my opening. I think this is a, you know, not so common opening against the Catalan with this a5 move. It's only played, I looked at the database, it's only played in, like, you know, 6% of games here. Most of the time it's they go back to e7 with the bishop rather than playing a5. So I thought this was a nice opening, and yeah. My opponent was 2300 just like last year, so he has lost a lot of rating in the past year or so, but I think he still must be very, very, very strong, because it hasn't been a slow decline. I expect he just had like some really bad tournaments. And yeah, because I was looking at some of his games, so I was seeing like 2021 that it was like 2300, and I was like, really? But he was really good. He played almost perfectly this game. Unfortunately, I also played almost perfectly, except for that one mistake. And as you guys can see, that's probably why I'm a little more proud of this one compared to my last one, because even though I won that last game, I feel like I played so much better in this game. Like, I was playing well, I was playing accurately, I was calculating long, complicated lines, finding the best moves. But then, yeah, then just one mistake. But, you know, credit to my opponent, they were very kind, and they chatted with me afterwards, and they played a really great game and deserved to win. Absolutely. Played some really good chess. Okay, so that is game number 2. I'm sorry for like the absolute flood with recaps, but I'm going to show you guys my third one as well. So this game I'm playing against a 1922. She is 18 years old, and I saw her rating graph. It was like a freaking exponential graph. It was crazy. She was going up with lightning speed. So I was absolutely terrified. Like, when you're facing someone born like 2005, they're already, you know, almost 2000, and they're getting new peaks every single month. I thought, she's going to be very, very strong. She's going to be very strong. So this is not a 60-year-old who's been losing elo for the past few years. Like, this is somebody who is improving and getting better. So I was a little terrified. Now, guys, I go for e4. I have the white pieces again, and my opponent plays c5. And I decided for this game, you know, I looked at some of my opponent's games, and she is a really, really strong tactical player. I was seeing her tactics were really her strength. And maybe like other parts of the game were not as strong, but she's still really strong. But I was thinking, I don't want to go for main line with knight f3. She played a knight off, and she seemed to know her theory really, really well, and just, you know, go for all those crazy sacrificial lines. I wanted to take it into more like a positional game. So I go for knight c3 here, and she plays d6, and I play g3, and I'm just going for a fianchetto setup again. And I know, guys, like I'm playing all these like fianchetto setups this tournament. Like, this is totally not my usual style, but I'm actually quite enjoying them and getting comfortable positions. So she goes a6 here, and then I bring my knight to e2, and we are going to be playing for the d4 push at some point, or the f4 push. That's the point of bringing this knight here to e2, is that it supports either one of these pushes nicely, or we can even put a knight here, and if they end up playing some, I don't know, playing something and giving us the square on d5. But for now, plans are pushing one of these 2 pawns. She plays b5, and I saw from her games previously, she plays this in pretty much every game, going for a quick expansion on this side of the board, bringing her bishop out to b7, knight f6, that sort of thing. So this wasn't surprising at all. I played bishop g2, and she brings her bishop out to b7. Then I castle here, and she plays e6. This is basically stopping me from like going to d5 at any point. So, and it also gives her some room for a bishop to come out as well. And then here I play d4. Oh, it's also a little bit of a sneaky move because my knight is almost threatening. She's almost threatening to trap it. Okay, like if I'm playing something like this, oh wait, no, it's not threatening to trap it. Never mind. Knight has this square. Ignore me. I totally forgot that. Okay, never mind. I was like, she's threatening to trap my knight actually, but no, it's not getting trapped because it's okay. Ignore me. Okay, so she plays e6 here. Yeah, I know. I'm playing the surprise openings, and I play d4. And then we trade, and I feel like this is a nice position, although this is a new opening to me, so I feel like there's definitely some points in the game where it shows that I am not so comfortable with this opening because I play it a little bit wrong. She brings her queen out to c7, and I play a3. I don't want b4 to happen at any point because I want to keep a nice knight on c3 controlling this and not let her have too much control down this file. The knight comes out to f6, and then I decide to play something a little crazy with f4. I think this was definitely premature. The engine gives it third best move, but it is better for black here. Because I want to play something like e5 at some point. Not straight away, but I want to play e5 and I want to attack her like this, or f5. I want to try and play e5 or f5. I end up playing f5 in the game. But yeah, the idea behind this is to like support a push up here, and then after she kicks me away, this d5 square comes nice and open for me to put a piece on. So it's an interesting idea, but definitely a little bit too early in the game. She plays knight c6 here, and here I play bishop e3, and I do have to play something like bishop e3 because I really have weakened this diagonal along here, and I don't want to be losing something to a pin or a fork or some check along this diagonal. She brings her bishop out to e7, and I decide to play f5, going for the attack. Woo! I mean, obviously at the moment I'm double attacking this, so she has to do something about it. She can't just leave it. She pushes forward here with e5, and now I move my knight back to b3. And as you guys will see, as I was talking about, now this d5 square, look how open it looks. It's ready for me to slot a piece in there. So honestly, I'm not mad about how this ended up here. Here I play queen d2, and I was debating for a while about what move to play, and I think queen d2 was the wrong decision in the end. It was actually quite hard to decide. Engine wants a4, and after b4, knight here, and trade, and yeah, this looks okay. My pawns look a little bit dodgy, but it's all gonna be okay. I can bring my rook over. There's nothing too bad about it. I mean, I can even go for something like this, bring my queen out this way, so there's nothing too wrong with this. Queen d2 was not such a good move, and my opponent found a really nice response to it. Bring this knight back to b8, which looks like a crazy move, but it's a really good move. There's suddenly all this pressure down here, and yeah, it's starting to become a little bit uncomfortable. She also might reroute her knight around this way and get it to a better square, because at the moment the knight was not so happy where it was on c6, because if you look at this position, the knight's doesn't want to go here, and it doesn't want to go here, obviously, doesn't want to go here, and it doesn't want to go here. So bringing it around to a different square is a really nice idea by my opponent. I bring my rook to c1 because I want to be able to move my knight away from c3 and not be losing my c2 pawn. So that is the plan. She brings her knight to g4, which is a super annoying move and a really nice one too. So basically, I can't move my bishop anywhere. Let me show you why. Oh, I can? Really? Queen b6. Oh, knight f2 wasn't a threat here. Okay, I calculated all of this. But I was thinking I was worse there. I was thinking like just rook f8 and I was worse. Okay. Wow. I didn't know that I could actually move my bishop. Huh. Okay, it was complicated though. I decided to go for knight d5 here. Yeah, no, because I was tempted to go for that, but I decided that, well, I wasn't so sure if it was okay, and if I was worse there, well, I was down material too, so I wasn't so happy. So I decided to go for a trade here. I bring my knight here, which is obviously attacking the queen here. If I take it there, I take it the queen would check. So what I want here is to trade off their bishop, they trade off my bishop. We have opposite color bishops, and I feel like my bishop here on g2 is quite nice, and this bishop isn't worse. Okay, I thought someone else. Anyway, back to the game. Here I go knight d5 because I want to just trade off the bishops here. So we trade off, and then she goes for knight d7 here, maybe wanting to reroute this way or put the knight on f6 and bring it back into the game, because at the moment it's on b8. It's probably the unhappiest piece on the board. I also had to be mindful that there would be some tricks with, like, maybe she wanted to go for this, like, so I was like, if she's playing h6, I have to keep this in mind, because I knew she liked to play for tricks as well. She's a strong player, but she liked to play for tricks, so she did want to go for that at some point. I knew it. Here I go for knight d2, and basically the idea behind knight d2 is to push c4, and also plans are maybe going to e4 with the knight as well. So yeah, I wanted to push here on this part of the board because I felt like that's where I had the most play. So yeah, that's why I went for that one. Then she goes for h6, which I was like, okay, yep. And I was deciding between playing knight e4 or h4, but I thought I still wanted to have this plan of playing c4 in mind. And h4, even though it looks a little bit crazy, it does give me a square on h2 for my king to go to, and it's not too scary, even though it looks a little bit scary. She moves her bishop back to d8, and I think her whole plan behind this is she wants to pin my queen. But it does have some merit behind it. It's that she wants to get her bishop off this diagonal, which really the bishop can't go anywhere, and she wants to put it on this diagonal where it's going to be a lot stronger. So I play c4 here, and apparently the best move is just to trade off queens, which I was kind of expecting, but I thought I'd be perfectly fine here, like not worse. The queen moves back to b8 here, and yes, I have to be very careful about this threat. And so I move my queen away, I move it to e2, and then she pushes forward here with b4, which I thought was kind of strange, but not so bad. So here I go for knight e4, and the plan is if takes here, takes back, and I'm also threatening this d6 pawn. So that was the main idea of this, is that I wanted to blockade in the middle, control the center, and attack on d6. So yeah. She gives a check, which is apparently a mistake. And I thought it was a little bit strange too, because honestly, it just gets my king to a better square. This is one thing that I like to say, is that if you're giving your opponent a check and it makes them move to a square they want to go to anyway, it's probably not the best idea. So I understand why she did it, but it's like my king wanted to be there anyway. It's happy here. And yeah, here she goes for bishop d4, bring the bishop in, and here I take. She takes here on b4, and then I push. She can't take here because of knight d6. And here I find a nice move, but I'm so sad about what happens next because I miss a tactic that is so obvious, and a tactic that I was looking at on the next like 3 moves. I was looking at it, and I don't know why I didn't look at it on this move. This was, but okay. I play c5, and I knew c5 was right because it forces her to take with the bishop here, right? If you're taking with any other piece, I'm taking on d6. But after here, I missed the most obvious win. Here, if takes, there's just this. And there's just a fork. So this was like such an easy win. And the worst thing is I was looking at 96 on moves after that, and I just missed it. So that was a really easy win that I'm sad that I missed, but you know, sometimes happens when you're playing a strong player. You just don't expect them to blunder like that. But yeah, I definitely have no excuse for missing that move. Except maybe that it was the second game. It was like 8 o'clock at night. You know, it was late. It was late. But I wish I'd saw that. So yeah, instead I take on a6 because I'm like, I'm attacking the rook now. And then she castles and I go for h5, trying to chip away at her pawns. I take, and then I take the, take this here, okay? And I bring my queen back to d3 because I want to attack this g6 pawn. I want to centralize the queen and attack the g6 pawn, so that's the plan of that. She goes queen h3 defending, and I have a nice move bishop h3, but then she just pins me, and I decide I want to push forward with this pawn and maybe just keep pushing, go and try and make a queen. She pushes and attacks me. I bring my queen up to e4, and then she gets the rook behind the pawn. And then I make a mistake. I was considering something like queen b7 for a while, but I thought it got a bit complicated. Like after check, okay, king h1 was fine. Okay, knight to7. Well, I just take. Okay, yeah. Mistakes. It's so much harder to calculate when you're playing the game. So she goes for king h7, and then I decide to go for rook f6, which now it's starting to become equal. So I definitely had my chances to win here, but I just was not able to find. I was not able to find the wins, which was a little sad. So I went for rook f6. She goes knight d7, attacking my rook, and I have a brilliant move, but it's not brilliant enough. It's not brilliant enough to win me the game. Obviously, if here I have bishop f5, winning the queen. But yeah, she finds a nice move with bringing her knight here, and I mean I could have gone queen c2, but I was thinking like knight d3. It gets very complicated. I go here, she can't take because of the pin. But yeah, I decided instead to just go into the endgame, but I had the feeling at this point that it was going to be a draw, and then she continues to play on for a really long time. She tries to throw like all these tricks at me, like tries to trick me, but then she blunders again, and okay. I was like, and the thing is, every winning move, I always consider playing it, but I was like, I was thinking about this exact line, but I thought after rook here, oh, there's just rook c7, that was it, that was the point I was missing. So yeah, at this time I have 3 minutes on the clock, so you know, like 3 minutes on the clock, it's hard to try and calculate that. But yeah, I was looking at rook f5 here, but I thought after here, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing after that, but yeah, rook c7 would have been nice. Okay. So yeah, instead I go for this, which I know it's a draw. I'm just playing for the draw at this point, moving the king around, blah-de-blah-de-blah, and still she plays on. I mean, I offered a draw like 5 moves before, but she wanted to play it on, so I guess, you know, she really didn't want the draw, but then at this point she accepts the draw, because here the king can't move forward, she can't make any progress, and yeah, dead draw here. No, she wasn't gonna flag. She probably just wanted to throw out any sort of tricks that she had left and then accept the draw after that, which is very understandable, like, you know, because it does happen where your opponent's holding for a certain amount of time and then they just blunder something, so I get it. But yeah, I had winning chances in that game. Sadly, I couldn't convert them. I think part of that is that I'm really not used to playing these like 2 classical games in one day. It's really tough. Like, these guys who've been playing tournaments for a long time, they have great stamina, great, you know, mental strength, whereas, you know, after my first game, I'm like,